12 to 18 hours a day in the confessional. Even so many people came that a wait of 2 or even 3 weeks was not unusual for visitors who wished to be absolved by this charismatic figure, who always tried to keep his hands covered or hidden. He knew when people were wasting his time, when they had come for the wrong reasons, and occasionally terminated a confession abruptly with the word basta, enough.
He could read your mind, your soul, and when God gave him the light to see the soul of a person, Padre Pio really, will tell him or her the sins, and also if sometimes they are not ready or they were not sincere in their confession, you will send them away without absolution.
He was usually disarmingly simple and direct. Nothing could be more to the point than change your life. Or, to someone who questioned the very existence of hell, you will believe it when you get there. He was capable, though, of remarkable insight, and there are many reports of his ability to read people's minds and their hearts, to know details of their lives and circumstances that he could not possibly even guess. Once, a woman was very surprised to be told that her penance, usually a prayer to be said in atonement for sin, was to go home and look in the well in her garden. As she did so, she saw the face of the son she had had aborted many years before. Joe Greco, now a great devotee of Padre Pio, met him in very unusual circumstances. After a dream in which he met Padre Pio on the road and asked him to save his father, Joe Greco's father suddenly recovered from a dangerous operation. Joe decided to go to San Giovanni to thank Padre Pio in person. He managed to get to confession after waiting 4 days.
This is what did it, really. When he saw me, he said, "Well, your father's all right then." Well, it shattered me, really, because I'd never been down in San Giovanni Rotondo before. I'd never been down that part of the world. Neither did I know anyone down there. And yet, I posed in my mind a question to him. I was saying, "Was it you? Was it you?" And he replied, "In the dream. In the dream." Well, I started shaking. I was scared stiff, to tell you the truth. I said, "Yes, Father, in the dream, Father." I told him my sins, and he gave me before he gave me absolution, he said to me, "Now then, there is something else, you know." I says, "Well, Father," I said, "I can't remember anything else."
And Padre Pio went on to describe an incident with a girl in the park when he was first in the army.
Well, it all came back to me. I wished the ground had have opened up and swallowed me up. I was so embarrassed. Oh dear. I said, "Yes, Father, it all comes back to me, and I'm afraid I've forgot to tell it in confession. So ashamed." Well, he said, "You've been carrying this sin around with you," he says, "ever since 1941. And the place was black-burned, to tell you the truth. And I got up to go. Padre Pio said, "There is something else you've forgotten." And there was a slight smile on his face. I said, "Oh, no, Father. Truly, there's nothing else that I can remember." I thought he was on about a sin, you know. And he said, "Look in your pocket." So I brought my rosary beads out. I gave them to him. He blessed them, and he gave them back to me. And that was it.
Those who knew Padre Pio talk with undying affection and admiration of a man who spent 50 years in extreme pain, for there is no doubt that he suffered real anguish from real wounds. The medical evidence of the stigmata, supplied by doctors who examined Padre Pio over the years, is impeccable. Dr. Luigi Romanelli, Dr. Giorgio Festa, and Padre Pio's personal physician, Dr. Sala, provided documentary evidence, as did many other independent medical experts, that the wounds were genuine and showed no signs of either healing or festering. Father Stefano is the superior of the Capuchin Friary at Pietrelcina, where they have a room devoted to the many relics of Padre Pio's life. Of all the mementos we have here, the most important is Padre Pio's nightshirt, which, as you can see, is stained with his blood. How did this happen? We know that Padre Pio experienced the whole of Christ's passion, the scourging, the crowning with thorns, the wounds of the stigmata, and that in his own words, the scourging occurred nearly every week over a period of many years. In spite of the continual pain, his contemporary, Padre Villani, once said, "In the depths of his soul, he is the happiest man in the world." His attitude to life, in his own words, was always pray, hope, and don't worry. Anxiety does not help at all, he would say. The good Lord will listen to your prayers. And yet this man, who was like no other man, for many years of his life rose at 2:30 a.m., went to the sacristy at 4, said Mass at 5, a time decided after his period of rejection by Rome, when he had been ordered to say his Mass as early as possible, hoping to discourage large congregations. But still they crowded to this center of worship and waited for an hour or more, even in bad weather, for the door to open. As he pleaded with God to forgive his people, there were so many to be remembered, so much to offer, that his Mass could last for more than 2 hours. The stillness in the church was absolute. As he reenacted the passion and death of Christ, Padre Pio became a man of sorrows, offering himself with Jesus for the salvation of the world. An eyewitness says, as he turned to give the last blessing, the peace of Christ descended on all present, and one realized that God, in his love and mercy, had given us this man of suffering in our lifetime to reenact before our eyes the mystery of our salvation. It seems that because he offered to suffer like Christ before him to save souls, Padre Pio was granted what are known collectively as the gifts of the Spirit: bilocation, discernment, prophecy, conversion, healing, perfume, and language. Father Joseph Pius came to the friary many years ago as an American tourist to see Padre Pio. He stayed to become a Franciscan friar.
He actually understood languages he never knew. For instance,
how do we know that?
By the documented evidence in his life. For instance, after making me learn Italian when I didn't understand why, he spoke to me in perfect English 2 months before he died.
And had he not been known to speak in English before, you mean?
He had been known to hear a confession in English, I think in 1927, but only that do I know about English. Then there's the story of the French prince who came and spoke with Father Pio privately for 15 minutes and marveled at how perfectly an Italian could speak and pronounce French.
The volume of his mail from all over the world was astounding. During the Second World War, he often gave families accurate reports on the fate of their menfolk who were away fighting. Many of his statements turned out to be prophetic. Father Peter Villani was brought up near San Giovanni, and his mother was a great admirer of Padre Pio. His father had emigrated to America to find work.
My mother, as usual, used to ask Padre Pio of everything she had to do. So even that time she went, and after her confession she said, "Father, my son is asking me to go and see him. Can I go? What do you think?" "Oh," Padre Pio said, "oh no, you can't." "Why I can't?" said my mother. "Why I can't?" Because she's thought something had happened to me. "So why I can't see my son?" "Oh, well, you know," said Padre Pio, "your husband is dying." My mother had a shock because she said the letters she received from the States was very good. Good health, good job, normal. So because Padre Pio said no, she didn't come. And in fact, the day when she was due to come and see me, she received a telegram from the state to say, "Yesterday your husband died from a mine coal accident."
Some of the most extraordinary stories are about his bilocation, that is, his apparent ability to be in two places at once, on occasion even to hold up the passage of time. Father Villani and his mother would frequently walk 12 kilometers to San Giovanni from their village to attend Padre Pio's Mass. One day, after Mass, while Padre Pio was taking off his vestments, a friar told her that the friary had no bread. So she went all the way back to San Marco on foot.
Collected the big loaf of bread, about 6-7 kilos, and put it on her head like our women did when carrying things, and back to San Giovanni to find Padre Pio in the middle of getting off his mass vestments.
So, by an extension of the power of bilocation, his mother travelled all that distance in less time than Padre Pio needed to take off his vestments. After he received the stigmata, he never left San Giovanni Rotondo. Yet there is an army of witnesses to swear that they saw him in many different parts of the world. And since his death, people are still unexpectedly finding themselves in his presence. Padre Pio's appearances of this kind are usually to people in need. Peter Barrett, in the army at the end of the war, found himself in San Giovanni and went to confession to Padre Pio and subsequently served his Mass. Not long ago, in Greenwich Hospital, meeting the parents of a badly injured boy, he gave them a picture of Padre Pio and the message, "Pray, hope, and don't worry." 2 weeks later, he met the parents of the injured boy, and they told him that their son was being discharged, fit and well. The mother, very grateful, said,
She said, "I wonder," she said, "could you give that priest," she said, "our sincere thanks that was with you." And I didn't want to embarrass her to say which priest, but I knew for a fact that I was on my own there. And she said, "He was very like," she said, "the priest that on the picture that you showed me," she said. But she said, "Would you please give him our sincere thanks?"
The priest she saw was, of course, Padre Pio. Margaret